Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 3, Episode 5. I'm your host, Alejandro. With me is the 6.5 giant teddy bear defect.
Oh, hey, everybody. How's it going?
How you doing, Paul?
6.5.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What's going on today, Alejandro? It feels like we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, so very busy Wednesday, shockingly. Like, for what we're talking about, and also in my life, like, there's construction happening once again. So you may or may not hear, like, my dog always perpetual barking, or a bunch of walkings, or even a chainsaw over there. Like, if it's Jason Voorhees gonna come hunt me on a February. But yeah, just very excited for today, Paul. It's like we got something big happening literally in like 33 minutes.
I know,
so,
right?
Which just for people, it's just to kind of put out the lead there. And Nintendo Direct is happening right now in like 33 minutes from when we're recording. We're actually gonna pause our recording to go watch that and react to that, and then come back immediately to just continue the show whenever that happens. So good thing through the magic of editing, you won't notice a thing.
Y'all don't have to worry about a thing.
Yeah. So Paul, before going into the rigmarole, what are your like expectations for this Direct?
I expect that we're going to at least get a little bit more Tears of the Kingdom, considering that's so close to release. They haven't really shown us any real gameplay besides that brief thing. Link landed on your roof, by the way. But yeah, so I expect it to be a little bit of that, but it's a 40-minute Direct, so I feel like they're going to also really spread it out with a lot of random indie titles, maybe a few things that people haven't heard from in a while. I think somebody said, what was it? There was like a price thing now for Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, that went live.
That's going to have anything to do with this?
Yeah, they took it down, but that was like very suspect. It was like, why are you putting like a pre-order right now? It's like, are you trying to tease anything? So
who knows what that's about? I don't really have a whole lot of faith in that. It might have just been like, they messed up or whatever, because I feel like we need to see more before that pricing gets listed. As far as everything else, it's just going to be a few odds and ends. I don't expect anything from any other Legend of Zelda properties unless it's like random spin-offs or something. Knowing that Tears of the Kingdom is literally that close, unless they surprise delay it, who knows? True.
It'd be weird because Nintendo of Europe literally put like, I think it was yesterday, 100 days to go for Tears of the Kingdom. That would be really awkward if they're like saying that and then they push the game back further.
Again.
Yeah, it's like, unlike the last Direct, that we came in with that expectation that because we had heard it reported, and those reporters got like reports from like our reputable sources that usually get everything right, that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker were going to be there, and they ended up not being there, making us very salty that entire morning.
Yeah,
I'm glad that this Direct is in the afternoon. I hate that it's around the time that we usually record, but good thing we can try to be
two birds with one
stone
is what I call it on this one.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have to wake up early for that. So let's see. They say it's going to be for the first half of 2023 for Nintendo. They really have nothing other than the Kirby Definitive Edition and Kirby and Octopath Traveler. That was announced last year, but we didn't have a date. Maybe they could date it. So
I feel like that might be something they'll talk about. But so as long as we kind of lower our expectations to something like that, I'm kind of okay with whatever goes down. We have a lot to talk about related to Nintendo today. Call it the Nintendo episode, but we do have some other things to direct. But Alejandro, what are we doing here?
Yeah, well, this is the X Bottom Podcast, Paul, our gaming podcast that posts every Thursdays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing, as of right now. Available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at anchor.fm/escape-gaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. So, and, by the way, for people that are watching The Last of Us TV show, this week's episode comes out on Friday. Because, thank you, Super Bowl, for pushing that episode up. Because, of course, anything that launches against the Super Bowl is just going to get clobbered in ratings. So
you better hope that it's going to be enough time waiting from Friday to the opposite Sunday.
Yeah.
Especially episode. You better hope it's not a part 3 out of that kind of trio there.
Yeah, especially with this latest episode, which I really enjoyed. I think it was the most fun episode out of the 4. Like the most at least entertaining, which I think it was nice to have, especially after such a emotionally shattering one in episode 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just enjoy like how they're adapting that section of the game, which is also very gameplay heavy. I'm liking how they're like getting all these places that we remember from the game that are so depending on you playing, and how they're like nip and tucking it. And this one having a little bit of a cliffhanger was like, yeah. This is the first one that ends. So it's like it's not super satisfying, but it's like a part one. And
yeah, I think watching the second one is going to really tie up a lot of the loose ends. A
lot of people that reviewed that episode, they were like, "We already watched the whole season. We would tell you, it's like the next one's a real banger."
Right.
So,
I mean, just the trailer for the next episode had me going, "Oh shoot, they're going to go full like purge in this city kind of energy," and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
great show, just great, just overall great show. They're 4 for 4 right now with like just absolutely great episodes. God damn it! It's like it's just pandemonium happening right now.
Somebody get a pickup truck in your apartment?
Yeah. So, Paul, tell me. Actually, I'll start in just real quick with some games that I played. I finished GoldenEye, the N64 port that's on Xbox, on Game Pass. It's a fun fact, Paul. I think this is the first time I personally have fully finished GoldenEye. My dad, he used to finish it before. We used to open cheats that would open all the levels. Yeah. So I have played later levels, but this was my first time finally finishing that game from like point A to point Z, basically. Enjoyable in a very, this is a nostalgic kind of way, but we talked about it. It's like in modern times, I think that game sucks in visuals and controls and all of that, but it's still like I manage myself still to put my mindset into what was it like playing something back there, or what are my memories, and that tends to carry me through. But I'm just glad it's there. But then it put me I was in a James Bond kick like over the last 2 weeks because I was like, I watched all the Pierce Brosnan and the Daniel Craig movies, all 9 of them.
Yep.
And while I was watching that, I was like, my PS3 is still plugged in. I have a few James Bond games there. Let's do what I did in the second episode of a Return episode when I was playing PS3 back in 2021. I'm gonna play Quantum of Solace again, and I have forgotten that you can beat that game in an afternoon. It's incredibly short, absolutely super short. I beat it in like 3 hours, and
jeez,
yes. And that was a $60 game, Paul.
Yeah.
Those were the days back then when you were paying $60 for super short games. People don't know how good they had them with the length nowadays. But that's how we used to get very weird, quirky games also at the same time. So
very true.
That's a difference. But then I was like, I have the GoldenEye 007 Reloaded, which is like the remake of GoldenEye with like Daniel Craig. That one I never beat myself. So I was like, I might as well. And I also beat it in an after, like in the span of 24 hours, I beat 3 Bond games. So that remake, I tell you, held up way better than I was expecting. I was like, I'm having so much fun with this. The last mission that has a boss that has like infinite health is the only part that sucked. But other than that, I was like, this feels like I'm playing like a really nice Call of Duty campaign. Like well paced with great spectacle. I'm enjoying the gunplay. I've used stealth here and there. How they readapted the GoldenEye storyline to make it feel more modern, even though their version of Top doesn't squeeze you, which is like very disappointing, especially with having rewatched the movie and her dying tied in the tree because she was tied in a helicopter, and the helicopter and she squeezed, and then Bond was like, she always loved a good squeeze. Oh man, the Bond puns. It's like you don't realize like how much like that humor was part of Bond that just wasn't there in the Craig era. But yeah, I'm glad I finished that, and it just made me realize, man, I miss Bond games. Like, I'm glad we're gonna get the IO Interactive Bond game because that's their next game after now that they're done with Hitman. How soon we're gonna get that? Who knows? Will it be as wacky as Hitman?
I doubt it in some ways, but I think they're going to really need to push.
It could be because that's the thing. Like, if they want to like move away from super serious Bourne Identity style Daniel Craig Bond and go back to like old school Bond, it could be wacky.
I think it depends on if they want to get away from the perceived notion of how James Bond is portrayed right now versus getting away from what they're famous for, you know, like that whole dev wanting to do something new and not just make James Bond as a Hitman game. So potentially, they may end up focusing more on the James Bond side of it to try to differentiate from what they've made versus what the character does. So, yeah.
That mute button came in the clutch right now.
The way you slap the crap out of that thing, man. So yeah, is there anything else that you want to share? Or do you want me to go ahead and talk about my stuff while that happens?
Yeah, you do it.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about briefly. I played more of Forspoken, which I know you finished at the time, and we can't quite talk about.
My review went live much
Yes.
later than I was expecting because they debuted a new graphic, which is real cool. The one that I showed you.
Yeah. Okay,
Because we didn't used to have that, and we're gonna start debuting that in the reviews we do at Season Gaming because they're just gonna look easier when promoting on social media if we want like a quick blurb.
It was like summed up all of the details in one image, which I feel like was fantastic, and it was really well made. So I played more of it, and while I was singing the praises of the gameplay at the time, part of it's starting to sour for me somehow. Last time we spoke, I had just gotten the fire powers, and I continued to kind of use the fire powers a little bit. I don't really like them all that much, frankly.
You need to upgrade them.
I know.
Keep upgrading them.
I've been trying to upgrade them, and there's parts of it that I really do like about it. I think the weird thing is the way that you dodge is sometimes a little inconsistent with avoiding damage.
Go to the accessibility option and enable auto dodge.
Okay.
It's gonna save you so much time.
Because when they kind of hit you, sometimes it's not clear when the actual hit comes down. So sometimes you dodge too early and you get hit anyway. Sometimes you're like, okay, I definitely flipped out of that. Why did I get hit? And it's a little frustrating in that way. The charm is still there. I am enjoying Frey and all of the other little side characters kind of doing their thing, but I gotta be honest, throughout many of those cutscenes, I found myself just kind of mentally checking out after a while. Because like you said, it actually is like really just simple cliche style story. And I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. And I still think it has a lot of validity to that. But
the story gets real good once you're done with all the tantas. That's all I say. Like once you're done.
You have all four powers then?
Yeah,
Okay.
Around the time you're gonna get your fourth power, then the real point of the story really like shows up, and that's when it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting the story to become this. This is sort of interesting, even if it's still slightly generic because it's playing on tropes. I don't know if you noticed, as soon as you get the fire power, as you're heading into the place where you're getting the water powers, you're in the section of the demo that sucks. That was the place of that demo. So
I didn't make that connection at first, but that must be exactly why I started.
Yeah, just rush through it. It's like ignore right now any side stuff if you still want to play. Especially right now, I feel so bad for you because you are like downgrading yourself because you played a really amazing game remake, and then you're also playing another thing that came out early for deluxe edition people. Yep. We are gonna talk about that thing because we've been playing it, but we're gonna save our thoughts because our friend Sebastion from our second episode from this season is coming back to talk about that game with us next Wednesday. So going from that to going to that, it's like that downgrade can be real rough visually, like in jank and all that. That's why I'm thankful that having like taken up on myself to review that game, I was able to finish because then it was all uphill from there. Even though I really like Forspoken. So
yeah, there's a part of me that doesn't know if I would redo it any differently, frankly, because I know I just was feeling really exhausted, even just playing Forspoken by itself. And at a certain point, I was just like, I'd rather play a Hi-Fi Rush, Chained Echoes, anything else. I went back to Destiny rather than play more Forspoken. That's how you know something was going on with my
it wasn't clicking with you there anymore. So
and it hurts because I really do like running through the world, and I do love the combat, but at the same time, it kind of feels like it's the same each encounter, where you just kind of like hold the dodge button, do all your stuff, and watch it all happen, and then eventually everything's dead and you move on in the empty world. So it just, that's kind of where I'm at with that one. Do you want to jump back into your stuff now that they stopped using their saw?
Yeah, the things that we both played Destiny 2 briefly. I went back to it just to. I had so many of the seasonal stuff that I just kind of wanted to get over with, just to kind of like feel like I got caught up. Especially more in particular the the thing with the exotic, you get that you can like modify.
Mm-hmm.
Like I needed to have at least unlock all those things, and of course it requires you to beat that amazing Seraph mission 3 times in the legendary difficulty. I did it once that same day that we played the raid, and then the second time, I hate that there's no way to checkpoint that mission. You have to do it all at once.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the chat because I feel the legendary difficulty for that game is like, it reminds me why the campaign was so good in Witch Queen. It's so finely tuned for you to like feel like you can use everything at your disposal. You're not funneled into, okay, do I have my champion mods? Do I have my
match game?
Do I have match game? Which, thank freaking God, that's going away in 3 weeks. That's gonna increase the probability of me engaging in higher end content more, because they throw match game and champions all the time at you. So that was always so annoying. And now they're doing things that for champions, your own powers will always intrinsically have things that can like stun them or like eliminate anti-barrier. That's gonna be so good at finally like not forcing you to say, okay, now do I have a pulse rifle that has anti-barrier? Do I have a scout rifle that has
like unstoppable
or overload and all that? It's like that initially was like an interesting way to funnel people into using weapons that they might not use.
Yeah.
But I feel the legendary difficulty showed that there is a way to make challenging content without getting you into a specific weapon. That's what made that campaign so good. And they finally, it feels like now that they put that in a normal mission and a seasonal stuff, that's here to stay. And them eliminating all the stuff that they're going to eliminate in a few weeks. Like even recently they announced that we're no longer going to get killed by like physics.
Yeah. I mean, they said that a couple updates ago, so I'm going to believe it when I see it.
No, they didn't. This is the first time they said that you're not going to get killed by like physics. This is the first time they've said.
They said they were nerfing the shield bashes. I know in the past.
Yeah, but that's not. But that's not. That it's like you getting hit by getting hit by a wall can insta kill you in a weird way. Right. That's what they're finally fixing and nerfing. So they're doing many changes that I'm like, this feels like the reinvigoration that I currently need from this game, because they reinvigorated campaign. They needed to reinvigorate the systems.
Yes.
And especially because we tasted what pain was doing the Master Templar run from Bolt of Glass, trying to get our Adept Fatebringer and the Time Lost Fatebringer, which finally
special hand cannon for anybody that doesn't play the game.
Yeah, a hand cannon that was going to guarantee the roll that has just eluded me for 2 years. An explosive payload Firefly, because I have Firefly with other stuff, just not with explosive payload. That was the original like god roll for that gun. You refused to drop for me, so I was like, we're gonna do this even if it takes us until midnight.
Yeah.
So
and it took us almost to midnight, but we got it.
Yeah, it took our friend Duncan switching to their warlock
and about all their patience, bless their heart.
Yes, and I switched to stasis, and that proved to be like what helped us with the champions. Just me throwing the grenade that froze and overloaded them. And the thing is that the warlock has a cool thing with stasis, that when something's frozen, then they have like a wave of freeze that can like chain for different enemies. So it's really good for like crowd control. So, but I'm glad when we got out of that threshold, we were like, oh my God, we got it this time. Just keep shooting. We got it.
You got so excited when we were getting to a certain point of his health, and everyone's like, shut up. Oh, that was great. But yeah, we got it, and it all worked out in the end. Do you want to share any of our last things and just knock that out real quick?
Yes. So I'm still playing Hi-Fi Rush. I had the option. I was like, after I was done with Forspoken and I finished Golden, I was like, what do I want to play? Do I want to play Dead Space? And my thing with Dead Space is that I acknowledge that it's amazing, like the work that they've done. Just me having seen the 360 version.
True.
I have played that game many times. I know they've changed a few things. I don't know what it is that they changed. For you, it'll be harder for me. It'll be harder for you to tell me what they changed because you don't remember much of that 360 version.
From what I know, it's they fleshed out Nicole's storyline, and they added a few like side quests that have you revisit areas in the ship, and that has like more video and audio calls that like show them in hologram form explaining things. And she has this whole like arc where she's figuring out the mystery herself, which I don't know if that was in there, but they were saying that
very vague from what I remember.
yeah,
So
they fleshed that all out to show her like rivaling with the crazy doctor dude that you would encounter in the game.
Now, this is gonna go into spoilers, so I would say skip ahead maybe a minute or two if you're listening to this. For Dead Space, Paul.
Yeah.
Is the final section require you to like move the mark in like a place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad for me. It was more frustrating to find where the tentacles were to shoot that piece and get the marker to move. But at a certain point, it no longer was about the marker anymore, because there is the full Dead Space 2 line thing that told you kind of exactly where to go.
That was also in the original, but it was vaguer. So
because like once you're in the room, it no longer tells you where to go. That's the one thing that there was like 2 spots where I just could not figure out what console to hit, and I was like, where am I supposed to go, guys? But overall, I had no issues getting to where I needed to go, and that's saying a lot for me. Also, since we're in spoiler areas, Nicole's freaking dead, yo.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yes.
Gosh.
And also, and speaking of that, is the end that the camera is panning and then she's just there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I couldn't even remember how it ended with like the Nicole you were seeing and who actually was, and you were just hallucinating that side of it. I thought you were hallucinating Oliver, but it was actually a person that was impersonating her, as well as you like.
Okay, that's new then.
It was like what's the name of the lady that is on your side throughout the whole game that's talking to you?
I forgot.
Anyway, yeah, she was like the agent person that like sort of betrays you and whatever. Well, she shows up and she's holding the other person at Nicole at gunpoint, and she's like, you don't see it anymore, and then she throws her aside, something happens.
Yeah,
and, like,
that is what changed, because you don't see much of Nicole at all in the original. So
okay, yeah, because they kind of fleshed out like why you're seeing her and why she's still able to interact with things.
There is also a bonus ending for this game. If you do like a new game plus run all with these, only the plasma cutter, and getting all the collectibles, it unlocks that bonus ending, which is something completely different. That's like the new thing that I know wasn't there. I was just wondering if the final jump scare was still there, because I still remember it very vividly. My friend Matthew came into my dorm. He was watching me finishing Dead Space. He's like, "Oh, you've never finished this game?" I was like, "No, this is my first time finishing." And I was looking at him. He was like, "How do you find it? Did it scare you?" I was like, "Actually, I didn't find it that scary." I was like, I thought it was fine. And then I turn around and Nicole was there, and then I startle, and then he just like cracks up, because he knew it was gonna happen. And I was like, yeah, this game didn't scare me at all. I was like, because I didn't find Dead Space 1 that scary myself. It was that moment, and then anything involving Nicole in Dead Space 2 always terrified me. So
the way that they designed her character in Dead Space 2, especially at the start, where you're in the interview and you see her slowly getting closer to you over his shoulder, and then jumping on the table and screaming at you with like,
my favorite was after you're finishing crawling from a place, and then you walk out, and then she just jumps in, and you start like a mini game that it feels like you're gonna be stabbed, and you realize that it was you yourself that was
messed
happening.
Me up. I was.
This is amazing, and I hope that this remake is successful enough for EA for them to like give them. I heard that the guys that made this remake for Dead Space, they're working on Iron Man now, the Iron Man game that we heard.
And considering how well they did the 0G segments, because they fleshed a lot of those out, they really knew what they were doing with that, added more robustness to it, and a lot more segments where you're in 0G. And I loved every second of it, because it just felt great floating around and orienting myself and figuring all that out. No, it was great.
I'm glad I have it there, because it's a relatively linear game. Right now there's an open world that's just waiting for me there. Technically, I already started because I wanted to see it, but we're saving those thoughts for next week.
Yes.
But yeah, just with Hi-Fi Rush, Paul, is like, this is a game, as I play more of it, I looked at how many chapters there were, because I remember tweeting at you, it was like, it seems like this game is 6 hours. No, it is not. It's longer. I looked at how long to beat. It's like an 11 to 13 hour game, which is like for a $30 game that you can buy. That's pretty good.
Really robust.
Yeah, that's pretty robust.
I would say that's just about as long as any Devil May Cry game, if not longer.
Yeah,
and especially
I would say longer. And that's what I was gonna like want to talk to you about, is because it's like I like this genre a lot. Like I enjoy that kind of kinetic. Like there's just something so satisfying about chaining combos, and the way that you make combos in Hi-Fi Rush is also really fun, especially with how flashy the visuals are, and especially because you never unlock the partners, right?
I unlocked the first one. Peppermint.
Okay, yeah, okay. So you had Peppermint. I unlocked 2 more right now, so I have 3.
Yeah, I know from the cover who is on there and who betrays the group, but it's funny. The first video call you have with all the villains, you're like, oh, guess out of these 5 people, which one is going to betray them and become your friend? It's probably the one that looks like a normal person. So that was always really funny. But yeah, from the small amount that I played Hi-Fi Rush, I really enjoyed it. But I know you were saying it kind of started to run out of its welcome there.
It's more like, God damn it.
So while you're just going to sit there, I'm just going to keep talking while that happens, because I enjoyed a lot of the details of it. I know I was singing its praises last week, but then I had this feeling where I felt like I had played the whole game already. And the rest...
Gameplay-wise, you have. That's probably like my thing that I was thinking. If I have to like give a big critique of this game, is that I wish the gameplay was more than what it is. Mm-hmm. As it is as an action game, I think it's a really good Devil May Cry style of game.
Yeah.
I feel with the style and energy that game has, God, how I wish that it had a little bit of Jet Set Radio in it, just to kind of like to complement its amazing combat. Because otherwise, it's like the game is like always walking in, do some slight platforming. Sometimes you use your grapple hook. It's a tiny environmental puzzle that includes one of your partners. So like Peppermint can shoot like some buttons to initiate stuff. Then you get a big dude that like breaks walls, and then you get a chick that you earn with like a Mortal Kombat style like one-on-one fight. That's actually really cool. That's all about timing.
Cool.
And she has like a stab that creates like tornadoes, so she can put out fires and all that. But then it's just the same combat over and over and over and over and over again. And then it just makes me realize, like, did I really love this back then because the games were shorter? Or I was just more tolerant of that back then, and I need a little bit more to complement the combat. Because my thing is that I did enjoy Valkyrie Elysium a lot, but that game was also a lot of combat. And the final section of that game is what started grating on me a little bit, where it was like 2 steps in, here's combat, 2 steps, another 2 steps, here's combat. And I wonder if that's just like a me thing, but when I'm finally noticing that that's just the pattern of like the entire game, like the spell, like the magic spell this game had on me, a little bit, but I feel like the charm alone is still like pushing me through, because it's just so pleasing to play. It's just so pleasing to look at. It's just so charming. It's like, it's so alive that's the thing that's pushing, even when I'm finding myself a little bit more frustrated with it, with enemies that take way longer to kill. You need to do more specific like aids from your partners to like stun them, and at times you're like surrounded, and sometimes like the control scheme, like I mess up because I feel like the B button, it's like it's supposed to be the dodge, but that's the parry button. I'm not a big fan of parrying in this game.
Games lately have the dodge button as circle, including the game that we've been playing besides this.
Exactly. So and this one is in the right bumper to do the dodge, and I try like flipping them, and it didn't feel right either. So it was like, well, I gotta play it. I couldn't like retrain my brain to be like, no, I'm gonna make the parry the RB button and make the B the dodge button, and I feel there's just some quirky things that to me was like, when I started this, it was like, this is gonna be like a 10 out of 10 experience for me. It's like, this is like exactly what I wanted. It technically still is, because it's exactly what I want out of Microsoft, something completely different from them. And I'm just like deflated. My excitement has deflated a little bit as I go, but I really want to finish it. I'm on chapter 9 now out of 12, so I'm that close. Yeah, so I just kind of I don't want to let it go. So especially because I'm in the spirit right now that I'm not reviewing anything until the 21st. So unless I get a code early for Atomic Heart, that's gonna be like my next review for Season Gaming, announcing that right now. So. And I'm reviewing Destiny also, so I'm gonna do both. Yeah,
both. You're gonna
back
be
to back. Yeah,
doing a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing was Destiny is like we already bought that, so I was like I was gonna play it anyway. I'm not gonna feel as bad playing it because
And
I'm
it's
like I'm
probably
not
going to be pretty easy to get access to all of the real things that are needed for a review of Destiny, because everything else is like, well, that's live service, that's going to come later, and that's kind of in the expectation.
It's easy to review an expansion because the expansion content is like clearly set there. And I like
you don't have to review
stuff.
everything else, or probably even the balancing for the rest of the game. Almost, it's just what's new and how is it.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like I'm excited for it because with all the changes that are happening to Destiny, I'm very excited to be able to play that, and it'll be interesting to play that after playing Atomic Heart. I hope Atomic Heart is good. It's looking really good. Like it's giving me that Bioshock Infinite vibes of shooter.
It looks really solid. It's one of those like this looks truly next gen kind of a vibe to it, where it has a good style. It kind of makes me feel like how Wolfenstein looked in its visuals. You know, like that was another level in some ways.
Absolutely,
but yeah. So I'm excited.
So I'm excited. It's so close. It's like this January and February play. It's crazy. I feel like it's even better than last year's. Like overall.
Definitely.
Even though last year we got Elden Ring, but that was like a massive one, and I feel like now we're getting a bunch of great stuff. I like having a bunch of stuff. Like I like the meal. I like being able to have the buffet of knowing what to pick.
You want the 3 to 5 course. You don't want the one good thing. Yeah. You want a lot of like, all right, this is like a smorgasbord here in front of me.
But it's just my final thing with Hi-Fi Rush is like, I still like it. It's a pretty great game. Yeah. Like. I don't agree with anyone that we will give it a 10. I saw a few of those already flying. I feel this is definitely like a 8.5/9 style of game for what it is, especially because I feel like I know what it is now. I just now want to see it through, but the gameplay is that. And maybe your tolerance for like that kind of action game is like higher than it is for me currently, where I'm feeling like it's like, it can deflate a little bit after like extended session, but I always have fun going back to it, like after taking a tiny... I'm
curious myself, because part of me is like, I don't know if I have the patience for some of those things, because rhythm can really mess me up when it's forced.
Yeah, and in this one, it's like that's just an enhancement, and it's not. It is a little forced with a few boss fights. So
it's forced because, in some ways, for me, because that's how you get the actual damage in. You can kind of like flub it in some fights, but for the most part, you're like, you really want to hit it right. Especially for a few things.
But that's what the thing I like about it. It's like if it made rhythm more of like a demand for you to like actually like beat this thing, I would hate it more, because that's what killed Metal Hellsinger for me. But that's what we've been playing, Paul, and right now we're gonna take a tiny break because now we're gonna watch this damn Nintendo Direct. Let's see what happens. Yes. Hope it's good news. Oh yes. And we're back from seeing reacting from that Nintendo Direct, and surprise everyone, we got our friend that we teased already that was gonna be next week to talk about a certain game that came out this week. We got him in early because he reacted with us. Thankfully, thanks to timing to the Nintendo Direct. Sebastion from the Single Player Experience podcast. How you doing, Sebastion?
I'm fine. Thank you all for having me on. Always a pleasure to be on this show, and also a pleasure to just react to all this like video game goodness with y'all. Oh yes, so quite a Nintendo Direct, I would say. It's like one that initially I was like, I'm not sure about this. Then they hit me right in the nostalgia feels. And then they showed a little bit more. They played dirty. And then they showed a little bit more of that Breath of the Wild sequel. But I would say it was I wasn't expecting anything after getting my hopes up in the last one. So, and we talked about this earlier in the show, Paul. I would say it turned out better considering we were a little like not expecting much. So we really lowered our expectations for the sake of it. And it's kind of a shame that setting our expectations low is the only way to feel happy in this kind of industry, but here we are, and we're gonna take joy wherever we can get it. So absolutely. So now we're moving into the news. So Paul, press X for some news. All right, so yeah, we just saw the Nintendo Direct, and I have the thank you Wario64 for taking on the role of the Nivelian left in the boys. True. So I'm gonna kind of like read, just basically recap. We're gonna cut the first two stories, Paul. We're just gonna make it Nintendo centric today. Cool. So
So just like real quick, Hogwarts Legacy broke 1.2 million like concurrent like views on Twitch, which is insane for a game that everyone wants to boycott. And the Kingdom Hearts soundtracks are now on Spotify. Those were the first few news. So now it's all Nintendo stuff from here on out. So the Nintendo Direct, just real quick, the games that were showed here, at least from what Warrior 64 got in. We started out with Pikmin 4, that is coming out on July 21st, 2023. Then they showed us Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the expansion pass, that Volume 3 of the DLC is going to come out and it's going to be available on February 15th. So that's the first thing from the first half for the stuff that Nintendo was promised. This was going to be a first half direct. It felt like it was more 2023 in general. So they lied a little bit there, but yeah, that's coming there. Then they showed Samba the Amigo Party Central. That's a game from like Sega with like maracas and dancing rhythm. That's coming out on summer 2023. Dead Souls Castlevania DLC that we heard was announced back at the Game Awards got a date for March 6th. So that's real soon. Then we got Fashion Dreamer, that it's just out this year. For everyone that loves fashion games, you have that. Around that time, we got Sebastion to join us in our reacts, which you'll eventually see live eventually there. And then they announced Ghost Trick, which is out this summer. This is like that weird sort of detective game that I think, Paul, you mentioned was like Phoenix Wright.
It was either like a spin-off directly, or if it was like a similar team. I couldn't remember, but there was some kind of crossover between the two at one point.
Yeah. Then Tron Identity out on Switch. That was the Mike Bithell game we saw back at the Disney showcase. Deca Police from developer Level 5. That game that I thought it looked initially like Astral Chain because it was like with the cops, but it was like the game that you all mentioned in the React was like both a Persona and a Tales game. That's also just a 2023 game. Then Splatoon 3, the expansion pass that includes 2 waves of new content. Wave 1 is in Inkopolis, and it's out on spring 2023. And then Wave 2 will be something called the Side Order, which is, they didn't date, but we know that is going to be coming whenever that happens. Disney Illusion Island, the game that looks like Rayman Legends from Ubisoft, got a date, July 28th. So then after that, we got the announcement of the Fire Emblem Engage expansion pass, the Wave 2, that is also out today. Then Harmony, the Fall of Reverie, the game from Dontnod that had like a cool art style. That was the first thing actually in our reacts that Sebastian said was the first thing that actually looked interesting and cool and new from like the things that we were seeing at the time. Then they announced that the Octopath Traveler 2 demo is out today, and say that is going to transfer to the full game like Square Enix has been doing with everything except for Spoken. So Sea of Stars also announced with a demo out today. Comes out on the demo. Yeah, comes out on. They were just probably saying it. We didn't see like them out today. There were a bunch of stuff that they were mentioning. So that's out on August 29th. So another thing from the second half. We love Katamari Reroll, Royal Reverie out on June 2nd. So what this tells me is that they were just saying the dates without putting the slogans there. So because that was another one that just transitioned in the direct.
Yeah, that's right.
Then Etrian Odyssey Origins collection that contains the first 3 Etrian Odyssey games from Atlus comes out on June 1st. Good luck with that, with Diablo literally around the corner there. Advance Wars finally coming out on April 21st. Sebastian was hoping it was going to be like the day of drop. They decided to do that with another game. So Kirby Return to Dreamland Deluxe. They announced the Magolor Epilogue, which is like an add-on to that they're doing for this deluxe edition. The demo's also out today after this direct. And that game comes out on February 24th. Then, to me, the big one was that Game Boy was confirmed for the Switch Online. It includes games like Tetris, Super Mario Land 2, Link's Awakening DX, Gargoyle's Quest, Game & Watch Gallery 3, Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare, Metroid 2, Wario Land 3, and Kirby's Dream Land. And they all will have either Game Boy Pocket, or Game Boy Color filters. And they also announced that if you have the expansion pack, you're going to get Game Boy Advance games, including Super Mario Advance 4, which is Mario 3, WarioWare Inc., Kuru Kuru Kururin, Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and Zelda Minish Cap, plus a bunch of other games that are coming later, including my beloved Metroid Fusion. Then the greatest announcement of all time happened. Metroid Prime is actually happening. It's coming as a remaster to the Switch today, as the shadow drop, and it's the Sebastion told us it's $40, so no $60 game.
And physical version available on February 22nd.
Yes, and then they announced Raincode, which is the game from the Danganronpa people. That was that detective game. Yeah. They gave it a date for June 30th. Yeah, for June 30th. That was also announced last Direct. They just now they put a date. And Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD Remastered. These were RPGs from the Bandai Namco that were like in the GameCube. So those are also coming this year available on summer 2023. Fantasy Life I, the game that looked like Animal Crossing with Cellar, is coming also in 2023. We can move on from that. Professor Layton's coming back, which, as our friend Sebastian noted in our reacts, that's they used to be like a eShop game that's no longer available. So now Professor Layton is going to be available like on Switch. I don't know if this is like a new game or
this looks like a new installment. This looks like a new installment to the Professor Layton's like series.
Yeah. So maybe eventually they remaster the old ones then. Mario Kart 8 Wave 4 DLC. So if you still have the expansion pack, you get this 4 DLC for free as part of your subscription. And then they made a bunch of montage of games, like including games like Minecraft Legends, that's out on April 18th. The game Blanc, that's out on February 14th. Mega Man Battle Network Collection, that's out on April 14, 2023. Sebastian's number 10, most anticipated game of the year, Have a Nice Death, coming out on March 22nd, 2023. Then the baseball game, WBSCE Baseball Power Bros, also another shadow drop for today.
99 cents.
Yeah. So
99 cents.
No lie. I'm looking at it right now at the e-store. It's 99 cents.
That's amazing.
I don't know how you made a Direct as a 99-cent game, but shout out to y'all.
Yeah. Disney Dreamlight Valley gets a new Realm update. They announced it for April 2023. That's going to be obviously for all platforms. Tales of Symphonia Remastered out on February 17, 2023. And then we got more clips for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and that game is
that small indie game named Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, that's what that just kind of like that. You just throw it out there at the very end, just like now Link will be able to like drive cars and like a freaking what's the ship, like a hovercraft. So
I mean, they put a freaking motorcycle in the last game, so anything's possible now.
Oh yeah, as a DLC. You need to get the DLC for that.
Wasn't that free, or am I crazy?
No, I think that was part of the expansion pass.
You're right. You're right. But yeah, shoot.
Yeah, and this would be a story for later that we're gonna read, because this was from the BGC. Nintendo briefly listed Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for $70 in the eShop. We can confirm that it's actually $70. So
that hurts my heart.
Yeah. So top level thoughts. What were your thoughts on this Direct, Sebastian?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I like aspects. I like how for a Nintendo fan, there's a little something for everyone. I am a little disappointed in the sense that 90% of this Direct, and I kid you not, when you were listening at it out, I was checking off the boxes. 90% of these games are older games, like where they're just remastered or ports, and I'm like, I think that's fun and fine for the people who want to relive like games for nostalgia purposes, but I ultimately like it. It sort of fuels that narrative that's sort of been popping up every now and then of like, how are we going to remember this Switch generation? Like, whereas like when you look at the GameCube, when you look at like the GameCube, the Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance, include the 64, those games were packed full of games that when you look like, where you kind of like get excited to hear about like, oh, the GameCube games are going to be ported. Oh, Game Boy games are going to be ported over. When we have like 2 generations from now, when they're saying, hey, we have a Switch, like the Switch games come into the online service, what games are we going to be really excited about? And I'm, like this Direct sort of mirrors that kind of narrative of like, where are the new games, and I think this is a good Direct, but I do kind of miss that new aspect from it,
Yeah, I can see that. How about you, Paul?
I think I balance this weird knife's edge between terrible cynicism and ignoring all the bad sides for the sake of idealism. And this kind of has me in this weird middle ground right now, because on one hand, it's got all of the earmarks for things that I'm like, I like that. That sounds good. And then if you have any sort of knowledge about like where Nintendo is in general, it almost sours everything about you, because on the surface level, you're like, that's the thing I recognize. That makes me excited. I'll spend money on that. That's the whole point of what they want to do, because they don't either have anything or they refuse to release new things for the sake of printing money on old things that they hold hostage, so that the tech literally moves further than you can literally play the game that you liked to force you to buy it again. And on that side, it's like, that is really scummy and terrible practice. The fact that it works is like disappointing to no end. And then whenever it hits that specific button that you get excited for, you feel almost bad that you're excited for it, you know? And it's like you are not immune to propaganda. It's really just that in the end. And it's a real shame that there's always that one thing in each of us that it's like, I will cave for that specific thing. And I know it and I hate it about that. And it almost like makes me not want to enjoy the things that they make at a certain point, because I mean, that's like, you have to vote with your wallet, you know, in the end, because they're not going to listen to anything else. But then it's like, it's inevitable that you're going to cave for something in the end. So I kind of find myself just kind of trapped here, you know?
Yeah, my thing is that with Nintendo has always been the thing that to me, they're always going to be like my nostalgia box. I have just come to realize that from them, that they do announce new stuff like fairly often, not from their own, like not from like their own developers, but sometimes with the partnerships that they do. And none of that really ever speaks to me. Obviously, because Nintendo's it's not my primary box. We have Sebastion, we have a fellow friend between me and Paul. His name is Parker. He goes by, he goes on YouTube by the name it's JOK, and also on Twitch. He is a big Nintendo fan. Like, he actually like tries to play almost everything that Nintendo does. Like that, he actually makes that his primary system in a way that I can't imagine ever doing. So I can imagine a lot of the stuff announced here would be like, hey, they're giving them something to eat. And to be fair with Nintendo, it's like when me and Paul did our year-end review of 2022 for like all the three manufacturers, we read the games that they released. Nintendo released a bunch of stuff in 2022. It was just not stuff that spoke to us. So I always try to remove myself from that. And it's just so funny that it's rare that I get excited about anything new from them. It's been a while since that has happened. In fact, I think the last time I got excited about something from them was Luigi's Mansion 3. So can you imagine like how long ago that was? So, and also me being like, I played a bit. Like, I know Zelda Breath of the Wild is like this really amazing game that revolutionized some open world design and all that. I think I get a stick on my butt with people calling it the greatest game of all time. Because I just disagree with that, and I like being in the other side because I just don't feel that way. But that to me is sort of exciting, because to me that Breath of the Wild is still the best game I played on the Switch. So even though now we got the confirmation it's gonna be $10 more expensive, and what that could mean for like Nintendo games going forward. To me, just the fact that they hit me in the things that I wanted out of it. It's like the GBA library being brought in. Imagine whenever like they shock people, it's like Pokemon Gold, Silver, Yellow, all of those are gonna be there in the service. They got me with Metroid Fusion's coming soon. I was like my favorite Game Boy Advance game of all time. Metroid Prime, like it being shadow dropped today, and me like singing the praises of the Prime series and being so like crestfallen with it being stuck on GameCube is like, those are the things that's what gets me excited. But from a new stuff, I get your perspective, Sebastion. Like it's crazy. It feels like we got all the new stuff at the front end of the Switch, and now like they have been coasting by on their success since then. And if this reinforces that. So
yeah, let me ask you a question, and I like both of y'all, and I don't mean to be like cynical. I don't want to
be the cynical. Be the cynical. We have to balance this out.
Usually, it's Alejandro being the cynical one too, so that's really nice.
I don't want to be that way, but like I want to ask you. So, if this was PlayStation putting out this level of let's say their state of play to where like they had majority 90% of the games were remastered games or ports, and then they just ended it with say I'm going to use God of War 3 for an example. Like, let's say they announced a sequel to Ragnarok. Do you think that I feel like the discourse would be a lot more heated than what it would be for this direct?
Yeah.
To be fair, what I mean?
Yeah. To be fair to that, like, we have to like remember also the early years of the PS4. A lot of remasters also. And a lot of people were critical towards them also around that time, because it's like, we're basically just getting your old crap again. Like, where is the new crap? To be fair to them, like in the PlayStation 4 era, for example, a lot of those games, like, we got them late because they didn't know the PS4 was going to hit. Everyone, if you remember, when we got into that generation, the Wii U was a disaster. Everyone was like, all the consoles gaming is dying. Look how the Wii U is like bombing. It's like the PS4 and the Xbox, whatever the next Xbox is going to come out and no one's going to buy them. It's all going to be mobile. And then those consoles like shocked everyone. Be like, no, people want consoles. Crap, we got to make games now. So that's why the 2016, 2017 era onwards from that generation was so good, because they really nailed, like, they got remasters to kind of like cushion them to before we got the new stuff, and eventually we got the new stuff. Nintendo has been the opposite. We got the new stuff at the beginning, and now they're just cushioning us with old stuff in its later half. And around the time that we know that they're being so successful, that makes it they feel like Nintendo's just kind of coasting on their success and just don't really care, because they know everyone just wants to buy them. And they had the benefit that out of the three, they got everyone by the balls with the nostalgia that they can get you in a way that I don't think PlayStation can. If this was a state of play for them and it was just remaster stuff, it would, I think, in the other side, because Sony conditions people with new stuff, they would get criticized.
Oh yeah, they get like beat to hell and back. But like PlayStation now is starting to like have that portfolio to where like they can also like milk that nostalgia. I don't want them to, because like I like new is like I want to see.
We're gonna get a Horizon remake for some reason that is just 5 years old. It's like. And people rightly have criticized them for that. People like, it wasn't until part 1 came out and they were like, okay, Last of Us part 1, maybe it wasn't necessary, but it was actually really good what they ended up doing with that game, with that version of the game. You can even attest to that, Paul. You were not excited until you actually had your hands and be like, oh, I can play Rambo like I did part 2, like you are like doing it. It's like, okay, you couldn't do that in the original. It's like they, in the end, justified it even though it was hard. It's just that it feels like they're not treading in, if they're bringing stuff back, they're doing it in a way that makes them really feel new. Like,
like when you think of like the PS2 era, one of the most successful eras of gaming of all time, like that has a catalog that I would say it goes toe to toe with almost every Nintendo catalog of like, if you were to pick like the Game Boy catalog versus the PS2 catalog, there's an argument on, like they're tit for tat, so to speak. But you don't see PlayStation like going to that well of saying like, hey, we're going to just like lean on nostalgia to carry us, And I like this direct. I think this direct was really good and it had a lot of things going for it. I want to point out though that there is like, I wish they would have leaned closer and a little bit harder towards like giving us some new stuff to where it validates like, hey, you should have the Switch because this is the only place you can get these new fresh games versus like half those games are going to be Steam Deck games.
No.
I think that's kind of the point I was hitting at. Yeah,
and usually that's how I see a Nintendo Direct, in a way that sometimes I see what I'm gonna be eating on my own systems, because a bunch of those games can sometimes also overlap and come in the systems that we actually are invested in. So,
like when we saw Chained Echoes, for instance,
that was on the Direct.
That was going to be on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So, Paul, what had you most excited about this Direct?
His number 4 game of the year. His number 4 most anticipated game.
Probably, but at the same time, I think I've cooled off so much. I just want Tears of the Kingdom to come out. Just do.
Yeah, I feel you're in the point how you've been hearing it for a while. It's been like 4 years now.
Yeah,
even close to 5.
And now I have so many other games that are doing the cool things that I wanted out of a sequel to Breath of the Wild now, that I'm like, well, I mean, I hope it's going to do the things that we were hoping for. I want it to continue the story. I want it to give me more cool ways to break the game and the world and just find myself lost in it. But now they have so many quality of life changes in other games that are modern that it's like, are we going to step back when Tears of the Kingdom comes out? And I'm going to have to just deal with that now.
I will say, Sebastion, you probably would agree with me with this. Some parts of that trailer absolutely look like Breath of the Wild DLC.
Yeah, it does. It looks like more Breath of the Wild, but I mean, I think the curious thing is like, how does Breath of the Wild look and feel to a lot of gamers after Elden Ring?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I specifically didn't go back to Breath of the Wild after Elden Ring came out. It was just one of those, I don't feel like bringing my Switch out and dealing with all of that process. Because like one of the things, it's going to sound dumb, but like the fact that you can't take your horse with you wherever you go. And if you
get too far,
you just have to you're on your own. Best of luck to you.
I did, before we recorded our top 10 most anticipated games around that time, I did try Breath of the Wild a little bit because I was testing that dock that I was telling you, Paul, on the TV there I was. I just wanted to see it, and the annoyances of that game is like that to me is like what grinds me more. Like when people call it the greatest thing ever, it's like, man, so people like their weapons breaking, they like their rain constantly happening. So then when you're like climbing, you're like sliding down the horse thing. That was my last thing that I did before we recorded, the horse thing.
I want to like clarify it though, because some people really, really do like the survival elements of that. I mean, there's a reason why the weird survival bubble didn't pop for many of them. You got Vanaheim, you got your Rust, you've got your Ark, and it's like that's what people love about it. And people really love those survival aspects put into Legend of Zelda because one, that was what was popular when Breath of the Wild came out. Out, and two, it's like it added this level of things, and I feel
Zelda being Zelda is what got people into embracing survival stuff. I feel like an IP, like we talked a lot about this, Paul. Something's like you may not like genres, but a genre you don't like being put like on an IP that you actually do like is what something's make you trudge in because you just love that world.
It palatable.
So. Maybe that's what happened.
Sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I think that's exactly what happens. And I think that's why stuff really succeeded after the fact, because it primed people to be more okay with those gameplay choices. And I think it's one of those, like, you can make the best apple pie in the world, but you're going to find somebody who doesn't like apple pie. And I think that's what happened here, where it's like Legend of Zelda did a really great job adding its survival elements, but then you have a lot of people that really don't like survival games saying, wait, this game isn't all that good, because of those reasons that a lot of other people like it. I'm on the former, where I'm like, I don't like survival elements really at all. And I think it took me until Breath of the Wild to be like, yeah, no, I don't like that concept.
Because I tried playing survival games outside of Breath of the Wild and I didn't like them. And so I think it proves that correct. But hey, we're gonna have by May 12th, we're gonna see all the 10 out of 10s. We're gonna see all the people calling it the greatest things in sliced bread. And I'm already bracing myself. But I also can't wait to play it. It was my 9th most anticipated game of this year because I'd really want to see it and see if they fix things. So real quick, like I just have to kind of remain here in the Nintendo news. I'm gonna read a few from that we're also gonna talk about, Paul, here. So we hinted at this at our reacts that we recorded. So the first story I want to read from like BGC by Andy Robinson was Nintendo's raising its employees' base salaries by 10% in Japan. The decision follows calls by Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for Japanese companies to pay workers more as inflation takes hold in the economy, Reuters reports. It's important for long-term growth to secure our workforce, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa told in an earnings briefings. Reuters knows that for Japanese companies that can afford to do so, higher salaries help attract talent in a country where a falling birth rate and low immigration have led to labor shortages. So, this was the first thing that popped up this week, which was interesting that we heard that news because immediately after, we got story number 2, Paul, which was Nintendo's stock price dropped 7.5% after latest financial results. The company lowered sales targets and said exchange rates were partly to blame for a decline in profit. The company's Tokyo Stock Exchange price dropped from 5,624 down to 5,201 yen, its biggest drop in over a year. The drop puts Nintendo's share price back to roughly where it was in January 2022, when it dropped to 5,192 yen, and suggests a negative reaction to the publication of Nintendo's latest financial results on Tuesday. In its results for the first 9 months of fiscal year 2023, Nintendo said its net sales were down 1.9% at 1,295 billion yen, which is 9.9 billion in dollars, if you want to know. And net profit was down 5.8% at 346.2 billion yen, to $2.6 billion. The company said fluctuations in foreign exchange markets had contributed to sales and profits declining, despite strong sales of Switch games and hardware. And then a third story real quick that just to add to that, Nintendo says it's not planning Switch price cuts as its console business enters uncharted territory. Company plans to grow Switch 122 million install base with new and classic titles. A story by Tom Ivan, also from BGC. The company announced this week that Switch shipments had reached 122.55 million units as of December 2022, a feat only bettered by its Nintendo DS handheld 154.02 million units and Sony's PlayStation 2, 155 million. However, Nintendo also said it now expects Switch hardware sales for the current fiscal year ending in March to total 18 million, down from 23 million units a year earlier and 28.8 million the year before that. Given the downward trend as Switch prepares to enter its 7th year on the market in March, during a financial results briefing this week, Nintendo was asked what its vision for the future life cycle of the console is. In his response, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa admitted it would be tough to continue selling the console at previous levels, but the price cuts aren't a solution it's currently considering. We believe that we are now entering uncharted territory within our dedicated game console business, he said, translated by BBC contributor Robert Stephenson. Within this environment, it will not be easy to sell hardware at the same pace as before. As a result, we realize that our new challenge will be convincing consumers who are considering new purchases, replacement purchases, or additional purchases to pick up the Nintendo Switch. With the company yet to announce the Switch successor, Furukawa said Nintendo aims to grow the console's user base by continuing to support it with both new and classic games. Regarding hardware, we believe that there will be opportunities for new customers to purchase our products by proposing both new and classic titles. So, it's yeah. That's,
and this chicken's kind of dry.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say you need some water, man. You've been reading.
Yeah. I have it here.
Yeah. So in the end, there's a lot of Nintendo stuff going on. Basically, with the weird timeline between them clearly planning all of these quick things out, between the hey, we're gonna raise everything. For the employees' base salaries, followed quickly by revealing their financials and dropping 7.5%, and then raising the price of something like Tears of the Kingdom and claiming that they're not cutting the price of the Switch. It's just like a weird domino effect out of all this stuff that was clearly planned up. And
yes,
I don't know.
You know what this feels to me? You know what this feels to me? They're holding on to dear life to the Switch. It's like it feels like a boat that may have got hit by a bullet. It's still like going by. It may be sinking a little bit. But it still will make it to the destination. They don't feel they have to panic yet.
It kind of strikes me as like a goose that lays the golden egg thing, where like they don't quite understand what made the Switch so good that they're so afraid of moving on that they're worried of another Wii U situation. Where like they think they understood what made the Wii do really well, and then so they made the Wii U, and then it freaking crashed and burned, and they're like, oh god, what's going on? What do we do? And then they just threw everything together and then put out the Switch and was like, oh wait, we did good again, yay!
No, better than we ever done.
Yeah, so I think they're worried about losing the lightning in the bottle that they have with the Switch, that even though the power is so low on it that they don't even want to touch it because they're afraid it's going to fall apart and not work anymore.
Here's also what's interesting. The Switch has never received a price cut, ever. It has been a $299 console since it came out in March 2017. The price cut, quote unquote, was getting Switch Lite, the $199 version on 2019, I think it was. And obviously we got the OLED, that's $349. So that one's a little bit more expensive, but it's basically the same machine. It's like, I feel at this point it's just such a profit driver for them that even as everything is just being inflated, that they feel like it has given them so much profit before that still is not going to cut so much into the profit, so they can afford to keep it there, even though they have a console competitor in the Xbox Series S being in the same price point. And
I think the real competitor is that Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I don't think they even think about Xbox, so to speak. I think they look at that Steam Deck and being like, hey, that does the exact same thing we do. It's only $100 cheaper. And quite frankly, it's taking the indie market away from us, so to speak. It's not, taking it away.
Everything on Steam, not just
your old game, like your old games. And the thing is that because people tend to forget the Steam Deck because it had that soft launch last February, because it was like, sign on to eventually you will get it in waves and all that. Everyone that plays the Steam Deck freaking loves it because it's like, that is the Switch Pro. That is what people have been wanting, like 6-7 years after this thing came in. The idea of like a powerful thing where you can play Fallen Order on the go or God of War on the go, because those games were on PC. It's like they I feel like right now they are, Nintendo's still in their ivory tower, but depending on how Valve handles Steam Deck going forward, I'm glad that I always see Steam Deck verified in a bunch of like PC. I don't know if you see it at Sebastion, that so many games like they announce a PC version and eventually they're like Steam Deck verified.
Yeah, like Hogwarts Legacy, for instance. It's one of those things to where I'm like, the market, though, it's like everything is leaning up against Nintendo in the market, and where like the IO portable device is also like a low key competitor, even though it's priced extremely high at this point. Like that one, the One X Player, which is another Steam Deck alternative, which just hit the market. The GPD Win 4, which is like another, it's like a sidekick kind of like Vita, but it's also playing PC games at this point. I'm like, there's so many competitors that are entering into that portable space that they're not the only game in town. But before we like go on, I wanted to say, like, everyone is facing this economic difficulty as far as like where we're at in the economic state. It's just the way these companies are reacting are kind of telling us like how, either one, how well run they are, or two, how customer focused they are. And I hate to say this, and you know, because I've been a little negative on this show, but like this Nintendo's giving me a little bit of Netflix vibes right now, to where like they're making anti-customer friendly moves, to where the blowback is substantial, and people are upset about the way they're implementing these new phases. Yeah,
and I think you can attribute that 100% to the price increase of Tears of the Kingdom. Is like because there's just no way that you can look at that game like from, if you want to compare objectively with its quality. Some people say like, what Zelda as a video game is better than everything else in the market, but it's like when you look at other games that are in that price point that look so much exponentially better, run better, it's like it's gonna be like a harder sell, and they know they can get away with it because Nintendo, if something has proven Nintendo anything this generation, is that they have pushed the ball. So they keep like pushing the ball on how far can we get away with this kind of things. To me, the big one was like, it started with the Skyward Sword amiibo that locked behind fast travel. Like, yeah, it was $25. And I don't know if you remember, Paul, like, I went on a whole tirade and I had to like go back and forth with our friend Parker.
I don't think I could forget.
Yeah. it was a heated moment in our chat because and that shows me, it's like so many people are going to bat for Nintendo. They defend everything. Then to me, the other one was the $35 increase, the $35 increase for the Nintendo Switch Online for the expansion pass.
And then the 3 Mario games where they released the Mario collection
until like March 31st.
Until March 31st, and then they removed it.
Yeah, and I mean, and also charge full price for that. And you know, like that to me seems rather steep for a game that's just ported over, so to speak.
And not only that, with like that's one of like the most low effort remasters in recent memory. That 3D collection,
like no improvements at all.
No.
Mario Sunshine at least got put in widescreen and 1080p, but that was just they were just like up-res's. That's just what they are. The games were exactly the same, but they were charging $60. The fact that Metroid is $40 is actually kind of surprising, because I could have sworn it was going to be like a $60 game just based on prior.
I think with all the bad news today, I don't think they thought they could get away with 60. Yeah. You know, it's just because it was hit after hit after hit after hit, and you know, like they didn't say anything about any of the bad news in the direct. They're like, hey, we'll like foreshadow that in the times to come, because they didn't want the PR like handle of hey, our games are going to be $70 now. But,
and if we saw with Hi-Fi Rush just a week or two ago, how long ago was the developer direct? Was it like 2 weeks ago, Sebastion?
It feels like a month ago now, but yeah.
Because
what were you saying, Paul?
Yeah.
No, I was like, I think it was a week, but
it was like
probably
2 weeks.
2.
Yeah, it was probably 2.
Yeah.
A shadow drop does so much to like earn you like so goodwill. So it felt manufactured. It's like we're shadow dropping Metroid Prime, one of the greatest games we've ever made, like right now, and it's not gonna be the price it usually is, but hey, we're like raising the prices over here. That's gonna be the thing going forward, blah blah blah. So yeah, I can see it's interesting how they like this whole week just with the news that got here, we're getting like all this different like tug and pull of news from them.
I think it's also like a, you know,
look at the cameo, Sebastion.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
I think it's really weird that, you know, like it's also going to be what, $40 versus Hi-Fi Rush, which came out at 30. And, you know, like I would argue quality wise, you know, with it being a modern game as well, like they seem like they should be both the same price, you know?
Yes, just on the time. And I definitely can't wait to just give it a try to Metroid. I'm gonna be that sucker because I think 40 makes it a softer like deal. So
it's like Paul said, we're all going to be a sucker for something or another.
There's something.
Yeah, there's something there.
It really lines up if overall we chain together on most things that go down, it's almost okay for like, all right, that's your one thing that you're allowed to kind of chill for. And as long as there's not all that.
Hey, I made my toxic Nintendo personality the nostalgia, so they got me there.
True.
So, and I will see if they get Metroid Prime 2. I doubt they will because that game kind of sucks. I hated playing it. Remember, Paul? All my cursing at 1 a.m. playing through that game.
So I asked about the most anticipated game that, you know, after the Direct. So is there a game that sort of like took you by surprise that you want to play?
Out of this batch?
At this Direct, yeah.
Honestly, Pikmin 4 is higher on my like theoretical list than it was because I think it was in my honorable mentions. I don't know if it would dethrone anything because I can't even really remember what my top 10 was right now, but I think it would be higher than it was in my honorable mentions.
I'll say this, Sebastion, we got a date for your number 10. What was it? Name Have a Nice Death.
Have a Nice Death, yeah.
That now we got a solid date around the time that has already become a little bit more vacant since the delay for Jedi Survivor. So I'm more excited to play that now because I know it's so close. I'm very like I derive a lot of my excitement to how close I am to being able to experience something. So
I hope that's like Death's Door. I hope that's going to be this year's Death's Door, to where it's just going to take a lot of people by surprise and just be that indie hit, so to speak. To where,
and not only that, the same month that sells Castlevania DLC. Being able to go back to that game as a Castlevania, that's going to be so good to go back to. So again, the tiny stuff that's not even from them. So it was the Direct just kind of gave us a gateway to solidify when we're going to be able to experience that. But Metroid, I mean, you saw my reactions. Like that was like my. And the GBA, that 1-2 punch of the Game Boy stuff and Metroid, like all together, was like that was my GoldenEye moment. Because remember, I also popped for GoldenEye in the last Direct, Paul. And I beat.
Paul, sorry to interrupt, but Paul, are you going to actually go back and play any of the Game Boy games or Game Boy Color games?
No. I'm gonna be honest, like the responsibilities of being an adult have pretty firmly meant that a lot of those ships have sailed for me, because the time that I do have, I would rather devote to like the bigger name titles that I know are coming out that I haven't played yet. And as much as I would love to revisit games that I played in the past, it's like I don't want to like buy a new subscription for the ones that I'm going to have to buy a subscription for, because all of my money is tied up in everything else that I buy. This is like real adult hours here. And then at the same time, everything else that I could buy on its own, it's like I've already got that slot filled with the time I'm going to be spending playing something else that I've already talked about. Like the top 10 is like the games I'm going to spend money on, not just the games I'm excited for. Yeah. So it's I think it's kind of the choice, the die is cast almost for me.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what you want to play this year. Yeah, more it makes sense. Like, I mean, like with Tears of the Kingdom, I knew I was gonna play that. My number 9 most excited one. Right. So this didn't change. This didn't move it up and it moved it down. Maybe it moved it down because of the price, but who knows?
I might be able to pick up Pikmin 4 for like Christmas or something, but like maybe Prime as well. Honestly, like just to know I played it, because I've only watched a friend play it before.
Paul, after we're done, we're gonna talk about an arrangement. So.
All right, we'll talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm looking at Tears of the Kingdom as one that, you know, it wasn't super high on my list that we mentioned on the show, but like it is one that I'm intrigued about because like I want the game to be good because I don't want Nintendo to fail, contrary to like how negative I came across.
And I think like at the very base, the game will be good because Breath of the Wild was good. Great, I would even dare say. It's just now everyone has taken their baton, the baton of like what they started and made it better for us. So
yeah, I want it to be good, but I also want it to be like I want people to review that game fairly, and I want to see like, is this going to be a good game on its own merits, or is this or the nostalgia of Breath of the Wild going to come in? Is this are we going to get that same conversation that we got for God of War Ragnarok, where everyone was saying, "Hey, this is just more God of War," and I'm like, I'm so confused. I'm so curious on like the
standards the standards of like how like it always feels like it's a sliding scale, and like it just feels in bad faith that if you're gonna like criticize something for looking the same as one, like you can't watch that Tears of the Kingdom thing and not see that 80% of the things that they were showing were lifted from the previous one. They just were. So
I want it to be, you know, like I want it to be good. I want it to be great. I wouldn't even care if this was the greatest game of all time. Like I'm, you know,
like to me, I just imagine that like the best case scenario. What if Tears of the Kingdom is exactly the game that everyone tells me Breath of the Wild is? A game that I actually like champion as like, holy crap. Because Paul knows me, like I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for the sequel that improves on things. What if it's that?
This might be the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that this will be that sequel that kind of, because I'm like you, I like sequels that kind of take what worked and kind of made everything better.
Just
I like that.
Yeah, just last year we got that with Forbidden West and Ragnarok. Yeah. That's what those were.
So I hope that Breath of the Wild, I mean Tears of the Kingdom, is everything we want and more. I also want to shout out, you know, like Professor Layton being a game that's, you know, that they didn't have to announce that was a new game that from a beloved series. This game is, I would probably say like D tier Nintendo. It's not necessarily like A or B, but a
D tier Nintendo right now, whenever they reuse so much, feels like a B tier. Almost.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It's like almost if they announced another Captain Toad game, to where like it's not gonna set the world on fire, but
Captain Toad was so good. It was like such an ingenious way of taking that mini game from, was it 3D World, and making it.
I think so.
Yeah, and making it a full game. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things to where like that Octopath Traveler, I mean the baseball game for 99 cents, the WBSC baseball game.
Yeah, just for being a buck makes me curious, just for the lulz.
I think that's gonna
the Burger King game levels of charm, I feel.
Yeah, and that Burger King game was better than it needed to be. I remember it so vividly.
Both of them. It was like the racing game and the Sneak King.
Sneak King, yeah. That was exactly what I was thinking about. But yeah, it's one of those things to where I'm like, they had some bangers here. I mean, you had Blanc looks interesting from Gearbox.
That's out next week.
Yeah. I mean, Blanc looks interesting. Minecraft Legends, that game doesn't speak to me at all. Like, you know, I throw it out the window as far as I'm concerned. But like, that's going to speak to a lot of people, and it looks like it runs well on Switch, surprisingly. So, a shout out to that. And then the Mario Kart Deluxe, like that, the fact that they added Birdie and added a lot of the
and apparently dash. I was reading that an actual new track with the Yoshi's Island thing that was not in the previous. In a previous Mario Kart, just from what I was reading from the Wario 64 thread.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't just a remaster of an old track. It was like they actually made a new one.
Yeah, from the Mario World game.
I'll say with the way they've expanded that, like Mario Kart 8 is like, why would you need another Mario Kart? It's like so massive. It's kind of like, why would you need another Smash?
More and more, I kind of respect it, because everybody always complains it's either one or the other, and you can never have both. Where it's like, oh, why don't you just make a new sequel to it, but then you split the game, the game base. Now it's like, well, that's the answer. You make the one, and then you keep iterating on it and making it better. And Mario is in such a way, Mario Kart specifically is in such a way that you can just keep doing that, and then everybody has the same game already.
And people never stop buying it. That game just kept, Mario Kart 8 just kept selling. It's insane how much Mario Kart 8 sells. I'm
gonna be real with you. Like to praise Nintendo for a second, completely love that model of the way they're doing things, because Destiny does the exact same thing. They just basically put out, Destiny 2 withstanding, but like they just keep building off of Destiny 2. And this is something I would love to see in the sports franchise, the sports games, to where like instead of you doing a yearly iteration, just throw us a couple of like updates, or maybe we can buy a $20 like refresh every year.
Especially that you mentioned, especially right now, the sports games are the worst they've ever been, because they can no longer keep up with the yearly installments without like the game suffering. So they would benefit a lot. It's just unfortunately that a lot of people are just so used to the idea of like that's their big purchase of the year in and year out. So they're kind of like tied to that. But I feel those could be the ones that they could do, like just keep updating it. It's like, and keep making it like that way. You keep iterating in that same version, make it even better. Like the changes are like more subtle, instead of having to make like a full new game where you have to like be taking features in and out like they do. So
yeah, I would almost stagger my teams to where like one team is the update team, to where like you're just working on different skins, you're working on different updates throughout the year. And then like while the update team's going, I'd also have a development cycle to where like that development team can like, so like you do a game every 3 years, that development team can really push the software forward and push like innovation forward for those 3 years of development. And then boom, when that new game comes out, it comes out with like all guns blazing. It has features that we haven't seen before. Maybe it takes like a street mode from like the old street games and such like that, and actually has a whole game within a game sort of thing. And then,
just street games, NBA Street, FIFA Street.
Exactly.
They were so good.
Exactly.
Like, especially for me, that I hate. Paul knows this. I hate sports games, specifically FIFA. I hate them with all the passion of my being. And the street games were the ones that I was like, these are actually fun. They're not pretentious. So
I was really surprised that we didn't get a Mario sports game here, because I thought we were going to get like the baseball one.
Yeah, considering how the last 2 years of sports games have been with golf and strikers, I'm glad it didn't.
It's a shame, because strikers honestly was
that one bummed me out. Hearing that it was so bare bones, I was like, damn you. It's like that was the one that I wanted.
Yeah.
So
even volleyball. Yeah. I mean, not volleyball, but tennis. Didn't also.
Tennis, yeah, exactly. It was like,
Tennis,
and that was even years before.
Strikers, and I don't think we've gotten any.
Baseball will be the next one if they ever do.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was just like, we're just missing baseball at that point.
Yeah, I see that.
But I was really shocked that we're not going to get that. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Mario Sports team is working on baseball next, probably.
I just hope that they release full. It's like I feel like the way the Nintendo sold those games, shameful, like absolutely shameful. That then eventually they got into where they were, but at that point it's like the side has already passed. So I would say that would conclude our talk with Nintendo, this Nintendo-centric podcast.
Right.
Paul, read us the game releases for the week of February 12 to 18, 2023.
All right, let's hear this. Blanc. First one on here, coming for Switch and PC on February 14th. Journey to the Savage Planet on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S on February 14th. Souls of Chronos on PlayStation 5, Switch, and PC on February 14th.
That sounds like a cool name.
Reloaded on iOS and Android on February 14th. Wanted Dead on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC on February 14th. A lot of Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Miro, A New Era on PC on February 15th. Returnal, PC version on February 15th. Shadow Warrior 3 on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, February 16th. Obviously, next-gen version of an existing game.
Yeah. PS4 version came out last year.
Yes.
So.
Theatrhythm Final Bar Line on PlayStation 4 and Switch on February 16th. Gigantosaurus Dino Kart on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on February 17th. Tales of Symphonia Remastered on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch on February 17th. And The Settlers New Allies on PC February 17th. And Wild Hearts rounding it out on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on February 17th.
From all of those, I'm interested to see how Wild Hearts does, because that's the Monster Hunter competitor.
Yeah, I hope it does well just to give them some competition.
Yeah, but then it's like, I hope that because I scheduled you for next week, Sebastion, because next week is like, because all I want to play is Hogwarts Legacy. So
already, I'm gonna be on it. Let's go.
Because you're getting it right on Friday. Paul and I like plopped up the deluxe edition. So
I've been playing it for the last couple of days. I gotta say, it's pretty tight, honestly.
Yeah, we held off on saying our thoughts because we want to like share it whenever you joined in. Yeah, we're playing it. I wasn't expected to have you here this week, Sebastion, so I was pleasantly surprised that we were able to get you in. So, but yeah, next week, all about Hogwarts.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm excited.
Yeah, so...
That means you got to put down Prime, Alejandro. You got to go play it.
Yeah, I have to finish Hi-Fi Rush first. So,
how far are you into the game?
Chapter 9.
Okay, so you're pretty much there.
Yeah,
he's pretty much
Chapter 9 out of 12. And then I'm going to, for the sake of the show, I'm going to like focus on Hogwarts for next week.
Let me ask you, like say we were doing a Game of the Year power rankings right now, to where like you were ranking the games as they came out. Is Hi-Fi Rush on your power rankings number 1 so far?
No,
it's not on 1.
Yeah,
I
think
it's
probably 2 right now.
For me, it's Dead Space Remake. Then it might honestly be Hogwarts Legacy, and then Hi-Fi Rush, and then Forspoken.
So that's the thing. I played a little bit of Hogwarts Legacy. I think that's number 1 right now. So, but what I played, because Paul devoured Dead Space Remake, I left it. I played Dead Space before, so it's like I know it's great. I know it's gonna be there.
I never finished the first game, so
exactly.
I wanted to see it.
Yeah. I mean, Forspoken right now is technically in the list just by default.
It is by default.
It's just by default like a number 4 right now. That's gonna be dumped out like when all the other games eventually come in.
And I hate to say it too because I was really hoping it would be a lot.
I would say Hi-Fi Rush before Today was number 1. Today was what I dropped it to number 2 for me. So we talked about it earlier in the show with Paul. I guess
what are you feeling so far?
Yeah, what are you feeling, Sebastion?
I have, I haven't played the Dead Space remakes, and I have not played Forspoken, so I can't.
Whatever you're feling though, what have you played though?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what you played of 2023 so far.
Okay, so I will say so far, Hi-Fi Rush is probably in my first place spot. I just smile every time I play that game. It's a breath of fresh air. I don't think and it's one of those things to where it's amalgamation of like all the things I really like about games so far, and it kind of nails a lot of those aspects. And I can't come up with a comp to say, hey, this game is exactly like this. Like. It's like so mishmashy of a lot of different things, but I think it does everything it wants to really well.
The style alone is like what makes me want to make it a number 1. As I was telling Paul earlier in this episode before you came in, this may be just my me problem. In like, I'm a big fan of combat games in the style of Devil May Cry. This is definitely in that style. I love how satisfying chaining the combos are, especially when you unlock the support characters you put in the right trigger. I don't know how many have you unlocked from those. I have 3 unlocked.
You're talking about I've rolled credits on Hi-Fi Rush. You
already finished. Okay,
yeah.
I'm in chapter. I'm in that boss fight with that for your dress like shark from the shark that's that reminded me of the Katy Perry like Super Bowl. Yeah. I need to share you the screenshot because
shark.
The left shark. Your dress is left shark, and you fight this like singer. That's what I was fighting. That was like getting so frustrated when like you gotta like share him, Paul. Go to our chat and share him the screenshot.
The cool thing about one of the things I really like about Hi-Fi Rush is like it feels like everything was music themed, because like Shy 808, those are Kanye West themes, like those are Kanye West like Easter eggs, and then you have like so many things in the game to where like everybody's name is like almost like a song, name of a song, and
I like that. Like everything in the music theme is like so great. To me, it's more like I feel like this is maybe like unfair to the game. Is like based on like the style and the energy that it has. I wish this gameplay was more than just like going from room to room and clearing enemies and some small platforming and a tiny bit of like puzzle. Not like environmental puzzle solving that like you mix the 3 characters. I have 3. Do you get a 4th character by any chance? Because I have 3: Peppermint, the big guy, and the chick with the staff.
Yeah, there's one more, right?
Yeah, there's one more.
There's one more. Okay, so yeah, I like that, but if you know what, this game looks so much like Desert Radio that it made me want like. I wish like the gameplay would be broken up into like more quicker pace, like stuff where you're like jumping around more. That's not just a cutscene, because that's also in the cutscene. Because then when I'm just playing a game that's just like the combat, it makes me like realize, am I really a big fan of like this kind of action-based game, or I like it when it has both the tight combat and it can vary the gameplay a little bit more. And so far, like because like what I was telling Paul, I feel like unless you tell me otherwise, where I'm currently at in the game, Sebastion, I feel at least gameplay-wise, I've seen everything. I've seen like what this game is in a way. That to me, everything like that, what props it up is its style. So,
yeah, I mean, you're not wrong there. I mean, like once you do get like that fourth installment, so to speak, like that it adds just another layer to like the gameplay and another layer to like of like. Now, I wouldn't say traversal, but like another layer of like level design to where like it'll give you another thing to explore through that. But like outside of that, you really don't have anything that it adds to that. So what you've seen so far is like almost the meat and potatoes of the entire game.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I like it a lot. It's just that it's in a few moments, especially where I feel like maybe it doesn't happen to you. I feel like the difficulty is like spiking right now in a way that it's annoying me a little bit. So that's like dampening it a little bit. But it's still a really great game. I really like it. In fact, it's like I like it so much that even as Hogwarts, the thing that I saw of Hogwarts was like, damn, this is so good. And also hearing Paul, like, because he played it more than I have.
I've put in like, about 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah, I put 2. So
okay.
So that's why I'm like, this is good, but I don't want to let it go. I don't want to let go Hi-Fi Rush. And I feel like that game deserves to be beaten by me. Like right now, it's like where we are right now. Instead of like waiting until later in the year where I'll probably forget it if we get swamped with all the things that are supposed to come out this year. So, but I really like it. Yeah,
that one's really good.
Yeah, so yeah, Hi-Fi Rush pretty great. It's just not before I started recording. It was definitely my number one.
Well, I think my number 2 on my list right now is Season: A Letter to the Future.
Oh yeah, I forgot that came out also. Such a million things that came out in that week, right?
Such a gorgeous game.
That one's so high up on your list.
I think it's just the narrative. There's like it speaks to me on a personal level because like as a like you're playing as like a chocolate guy and I am like a chocolate guy and we normally don't get to be protagonists in the games for one thing, and then like you add that like it's a smaller indie game that is beautiful. It has a really stylized art style, but like the fact that like the storytelling there is like it has like it's not quite what is that game? It's not quite on a level of like some
Journey.
Not Journey. It's I'm trying to think of the Life. I got it on the tip of my tongue. Life is Strange.
Oh, okay.
Life is Strange. It's like it has storytelling elements from Life is Strange to where like they tell a story that's very like right on key and on point, just like Life is Strange. But like the way they tell the story is more like streamlined and it's more like get you to the point of everything like that. So I like that, and I don't feel like there's a narrative that has told a story quite like this in video games, and I feel like for everything that it wants to do, it does it on an exceptionally well level, especially for a game of this budget. So I'm like, when I'm looking at games, I often think to myself, I'm like, how big was your budget? What did you execute everything you set out to do? And, like what are some of the things, did I find that I felt like I was missing something or like it was missing that secret sauce to really elevate it up to a higher echelon? Mm-hmm. And this game didn't feel like it was missing anything. This game, it felt like it was nailing everything it set out to do. And it felt like it was so stylized to where like, if you play this game at the end of the year, I don't think you'll like, and you're listing off your top indies of the year, I don't think you'll forget to leave this off your list.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I don't think it's game of the year, but
yeah, I think that will be, especially because it was that was featured in one of the State of Plays. I think it was the one that gave us Resident Evil full remake poll. I remember that was there right before Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy. No, not Rebirth. 16. Mm-hmm. I feel this will be like a big like PlayStation Extra like game like soon. I feel like
get that vibe.
Yeah, so maybe that's when I'm gonna try it. right now there's so much, and also because I will be getting ready for 2 other reviews later this month, that I have to savor right now my time of like being able to like play what I want to play. So I have at least until February 21st.
Do you have any others on your list?
Like some of them were I was cleaning up some other ones from like late 2022 that I didn't get a chance to actually play. Like one is a game called Arcane Veil. It's a game that came out in December of 2022. Fantastic smaller indie game. It is almost like a mixture between Skyrim, but like Skyrim and Stardew Valley. And it has like some Dark Souls elements into it, but it's all in this like indie. It's almost like that 2D art style, and it's a game that it took me by surprise because like it is difficult. Like I said, it has like a Souls kind of vibe, and when you die, you drop all your gear. But like you drop every single gear that you have. You keep the money that you earned, but all the gear you have to go back to that spot and pick it back up. Like pick up every single gear, whether it be armor, whether it be like swords, all that sort of things. But I mentioned Skyrim. It's a game like Skyrim to where like it's a action-packed open world RPG where everybody gives you a quest and everybody basically asks you a favor. But like you can basically do anything you want in this like 2D dimensional game. And I don't really see that in 2D games a lot, to where you have that Skyrim-esque effect to where like you're playing in an open world where you're playing in a game to where like you can be a villain, you can be a hero, you can be anything you kind of want to be. And yeah, so it's a medieval fantasy RPG that kind of is just taking me by surprise. And ultimately, I don't think the game's perfect, but I do think this is like a strong 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, depending on who you talk to. So, yeah, it's a game that I think like if more people played it, it would have probably gotten into the at least discussion for Indie Game of the Year last year.
All right. Man. Now I want to go look things up.
Man, just hit your boy up, man. I have indies for days as far as that.
No, that's what I love about having you in, Paul, because Sebastion.
He doesn't want me in.
Yeah, no, because you bring that perspective that me and Paul and I lean more into the big games, unless like an indie game really
stands out.
It really stands out. And I think you are like our gateway to like hear more of those. Like without you, like What Haven't I Said wouldn't have been in my radar. And now that's like in March. So
yeah. I cover quite a bit of the indies, but yeah, it's also that thing to where like I'm looking at like what is going to be my time filler in between those big games. Because like yourself, like I play those, but like some of those, like, you know, I haven't played Dead Space, but I know I can mow through Dead Space in like 2 or 3 sittings if I tried, you know, like that's a 2-week kind of game. So what do I play in for the 3 to 5 weeks where there's nothing there, you know?
Yeah, especially last year would have been big it was specifically big for that. So
what were you saying though? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, sorry. No, because we're gonna like segue out now. Yeah, Paul and I would have been like recording for a while.
About 3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Oh my goodness.
because we started recording the podcast and then we paused to react and then continue the episode. So
I gotta go make dinner.
Yeah. So Sebastion, when can people find you?
Man, you already know. You can find me at the Single Player Experience podcast, the perfect podcast for single player gamers to find out about good single player games to play. We've had some really cool episodes on this week, including the episode where yours truly, one of the hosts of this podcast, joined us and talked about some really cool things that were happening.
And we reacted to the developer direct the same day. Remember? Yep.
The Xbox Developer Direct. Thank you for being on the show for that. And then we also, I also had a couple of different things. We had Dustin Brady, the author of Trapped in a Video Game and Escape from a Video Game. He's a best-selling author on the show. He came on the show to talk about like some of his video game backlogs, how like video games inspired him to create his own almost like book series, very akin to Captain Underpants and different things like that. So
nice.
Had him on the show recently. We've had the senior animator for PlayStation on the show recently.
You teased in your appearance back in January that you were gonna have, so that happened already, right?
Yeah. So the episode should be coming out really soon. Be on the lookout for that. We We're doing an expose into AEW Fight Forever, the upcoming wrestling video game that's coming out. We also have the top horror games that you should be playing right now. So I'm like, if you're in the mood for single player gamers, we got you covered in any state or genre. So check us out at the Single Player Experience Podcast. You can find it on all your favorite podcast platforms.
Yeah. And Paul, where can people find you?
As always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter, is where I, used to post videos of me breaking things, but it sounds like I might not be able to do that for very long.
Thanks, Musk.
That happens. I post art there pretty regularly, or just retweet funny things. Alejandro, where can they find you?
They can find me at A_Dorsegovia on Twitter, at ASegovia on Hive, at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram, and my written content whenever I write stuff there at thecriticalcorner.com, and my reviews over at seasongaming.com. My Forspoken review is live, and sometime in the future you'll see a review of Atomic Heart and Destiny 2 Lightfall by yours truly. So, Sebastion, Sebastion, always a pleasure getting to get you in whenever we can get you in. And Paul, always a pleasure doing the show with you. We're off to play some games now. So everyone else, stay healthy, stay safe, and remember,
press X
to play.
Hit that X button. Let's go.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.